The Reef Therapy Podcast is powered by ICP Analysis. If you'd like to win a free saltwater ICP analysis kit and a freshwater analysis kit, all you have to do is leave a comment down below using the hashtag #What'sInYourWater. If you're listening to the audio-only version, head on over to YouTube and you can enter in the comment section there. ICP Analysis will test over 50 elements down to parts per trillion. These tests can also be used to see if there's any undesirable elements in your aquarium as well. Register your aquarium on the ICP Analysis app, fill your sample, place it back into the bag, slap on that included postage, and have your results 1 to 3 days after it's received. More at icpanalysis.com.
Hello, Reef Builders, and welcome to an episode here in the studio. I have Sara and Chelsie here with me hanging out on the couch, and we've all, well, 2 of the 3 of us have been traveling today. I just got done doing a 9-hour car ride here up to Colorado from Kansas City. And then Chelsie, you were having fun though, up in the mountain.
Yeah,
So
we
I'm
got
jealous.
to do a little bit of boarding and see the pretty snow.
Yeah, your view, she sent me a picture of her view and she's like, I'm driving in. And I was like, wow, that's such a better view than what I'm currently looking at, which was like all open prairie and a railroad
Brown
track.
and dusty.
A little brown and dusty, but that's okay. It was cool. And then Sara just lives here, so
Yeah.
she just hangs out whenever she wants to.
My commute was definitely a lot easier than your guys' commute.
Yeah. So Chelsie and I are like kind of a little tired, but we're going to make it through here because Reefstock is coming. We're here. We're getting ready to start having an excellent weekend hanging out with everybody. And you guys actually are getting to present at the show. I have had the lovely duty of putting the show together behind the scenes a bit. So I wrangled these 2 into the show. They previously did not know they were going to do anything until I told them they were going to.
Voluntold to do talks. It's not bad.
Yeah. Hey, girls, you're doing this, and then you're doing that. That's roughly how it went, I think. So.
Less time to think about it, so you just act.
Yeah. I was like,
You have to stress over it. It's just going to happen.
This is happening.
It was just a text. Have I told you you're doing a talk?
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. You're getting on stage. Prepare yourself.
Chelsea, bring your hammer and chisel.
Yeah. And glue, some rock, gonna play around, have a little workshop, which is what you're doing, Chelsie. You're doing an aquascaping workshop.
Yeah.
And that's because she's a little bit of a aquascaping champion here. So
I can't wait to attend it. Bring that up every podcast.
we are, yeah. We have the aquascaping champion, Chelsie.
Got it. You need like a belt.
I know, we
Sash.
do.
Thought about getting one of
We
those.
do.
Sashes.
We do. Just have like some rubble trim on it.
And then I'll keep it.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, you just keep it. Never let, that other person ever get me.
Yeah, I'm excited because I just finished a 220 build. And so, my mind's still going. So I hope I have some
Good juices flowing.
good juices.
That
flowing.
kept you really busy because we have a group chat and Chelsie is so interactive with like letting us know like some of the stuff that she's doing. So we all kind of live vicariously through her on some of the projects she's working on.
It's okay. You could say I blow up your phone.
It's so awesome. Well, technically it's both of us blowing up Sara.
You two are the
and
chatting.
Jen.
Sara.
Yeah, so Sara and Jen probably log in and it's like, all right, you have 150 messages to catch up on because Evie and Chelsie decided to
I
talk
think the
until
most was
1 a.m.
60.
60.
Oh, 60?
I think the most
okay, well,
was
that's not
60.
as bad.
You're like doing surgery on a scorpion and you're like getting message after message about.
I've
You're just
never
watching
done surgery on a scorpion, but I have on a horseshoe crab.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
We're gonna have to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, you are. Well, we can talk about that maybe later.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Talking
Sure.
about inverts and things like
I
that.
know. That's what we want to talk about tonight. So we want to talk a little bit about cool inverts, maybe some unappreciated inverts, making sure that you have, some of the unfortunate but good things happening in your tank to actually facilitate certain types of inverts.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to our Reefstock chat real quick, Sara is actually one of our speakers this weekend. You're doing a chat.
Yeah.
Subject is.
Probably we're just going to be highlighting some of the other really awesome talks and workshops that are going on, talking about coral health, ways that you can help diagnose issues in your tanks to really find the right tool for the issue to allow for more surgical approaches to correcting issues within your coral and your reef health.
Ah, dude, so you're going to talk about like all the neat little utensils and stuff?
Yeah. So we talk about mechanical ways that you can support better health,
Nice.
chemical ways, biological ways. So just giving out my toolkit that I use personally to help keep my coral
I
alive.
always loved that part. Like, are you guys like,
Your dental tools?
yeah, your dental tool snobs?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have
Yeah.
to have like everything looks super clean.
Yep.
Like, I could not stand it if any little speck of rust or unfortunateness hits
Toss it.
my tools.
Gotta go.
Yeah, it's over with. I don't like you anymore.
Well, they're like, I think they're so valuable, dental tools, and they're like $7 on
Yeah.
Amazon. If
Yeah.
you want to pick up like a cheap set, you can buy the nicer ones that are available from different retailers and brands. And they will probably hold up a little bit better with long-term use in like the marine world.
And they come in cute little bags.
They got their little pouches and stuff. But as long as you're doing proper maintenance on your tools, like you're washing them with fresh water right after, you're drying them, you shouldn't see rust as being an issue.
Let me ask you this. You ever thought about pottery tools? Because they're kind of in like that same category. I've used some of those because I used to do some pottery, and they have some of those. If you didn't know they weren't dental tools, you would think they're dental tools,
Yeah.
but a little different shapes, little curvatures.
Yeah,
So, like
there's
some of the spatulas.
They have
like-
like the metal tools too.
Yeah, and some of them are like have sharper edges
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah, where they do the intricate design.
Yeah, because you can
part.
do more like cutting with tools like that
Wedging.
and wedging. Yeah, than some of the dental tools. Yeah, I found that it's really fun to just play with the tools and figure out, because different people are going to favor different things. It is very much you find the tool that works best for you, and then like that's your tool, and somebody else has this different one that they do the exact same stuff with.
Or they steal your tool.
Or they steal your tool.
If you have ever worked in a fish store,
Yeah.
you understand what I'm talking about.
Grease pencils, Sharpies.
It's not like how in offices where tape rolls and scissors go missing. It's like
Yeah.
different dental tools go missing.
Yeah, like your fragging tools go missing. Sometimes it's like your
Bone
favorite hose that you do your water changes
yeah.
with.
Yep.
Your favorite pump that you use. Yeah. Or like that
Turkey
one.
basters.
Yeah, turkey basters, that one
Yep.
drum that does not have the messed up squeaky wheel. You know which one it is, and you try to hide it from everyone else just so it doesn't become one.
And
of
everybody
those.
else is thinking it's their favorite, so they're trying to hide it from you.
Yeah, and it just kind of turns into a whole like inner store like turf war over tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a good time.
When the clients aren't in the store, we're looking for everything that's gone missing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to write like down the hose for my water changes because I had a hose that was about 60 feet long that went from my 700-gallon SPS tank all the way back to a drain in the back room, and I had a ball valve for swapping it out, and I used to write like all the way down from one end to the other, like, do not steal this, like, and
In pink.
No, I'd have it like all over. It didn't matter what color it was in Sharpie. And it'd be funny because like little kids would come in. You know how like when kids are younger and they're just starting to read, they read everything. So they'd be like, do not steal this. You will pay for it. Oh, what's that mean? I'm just like, I mean, they read it just fine.
Yeah.
Future
Why-
employees.
Yes.
Yeah, they can read.
Train them early.
Yeah.
Half
train
the
them
battle
early.
right there. Can
Dude.
follow the direction of what they read.
Very
Yes.
very important.
Yeah.
Read
You're
and
hired.
execute.
What's up, little dude? Let's hang out. Oh my gosh. Speaking of like youth coming into the hobby, I mean, we get to have Salem come here
Yeah.
for this show. This is going to be exciting. He's one of our newest members of the team. I know that like I've been watching him do Reef Recap. Have you guys gotten to see any of his
Snippets it,
episodes?
yeah.
Yeah,
It-
I've been
it's
really
pretty
interested
cool.
in them.
It's really cool. I do feel sometimes while I'm watching him that I am like, I can keep up, but it's kind of like, okay, yes, I did understand what
Yeah.
he said.
I have to like pull it back, rewind a little bit.
Yeah,
listen
I'm
to it
like,
again.
okay, yes, I got that.
Yeah.
Because it's refreshing to have him like hanging out and doing all that stuff. And he has like such a really neat personality. And you're just like, yes, love this. This is so good. And he's such a great addition to our team. We need to like have him hang out with us on the couch.
Oh
and
yeah,
we'll just
we'll let
try
them join
to-
the couch.
Yeah, we should have Salem join our couch discussion sometime.
It would just end up in him and I talking about coral microbiomes for way too long.
It's okay. I'd sit there and gladly
Be like-
listen. Just listen. Be like, yes, please school away. I'm ready.
Anytime we're pulling more science into the hobby, I'm such a huge fan of, because there are so many great practices within science of that critical thinking, following process, and really, I love that we're pushing more for that.
Yeah.
Of people to really critically look at what is available, what are they being told, and how does that actually hold up to current peer-reviewed literature, or how do we incorporate peer-reviewed literature into what we do in our daily lives. So big fan. I love science being accessible and widespread. That's a lot of what my job is just that education component.
Yeah.
So
Well, you get to do it all.
good synergy.
You get
Love
to
it.
do like the sciencey side.
The sciencey science as opposed to just science.
Yeah. You're like super science over there.
Yeah, a lot of it's just applied science. So we do a lot of work with taking things that are done in labs, which is really a lot of what the microbiology tends to have being done in labs. There's a lot of sterility and things like that. What we get to do is kind of the more nitty-gritty, loose applied science.
That's my kind of science, the applied version.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I am too, where I love getting to take, okay, in this sterile condition, this works really well. But when you add all of these chaotic elements, how is this going to all work together? Or how does it? And I just love that I am constantly being surprised with results or things do something unexpected. So I love to learn. So anytime I can learn something new or fall down a weird rabbit hole, like that's 10 out of 10 for me.
Do you have anywhere that you go for like trusted peer-reviewed sources? Because a lot of times as hobbyists, we're just, we're on our Facebook forum or we're on whatever forum, but you don't know who's behind the comment that was just made. So do you have maybe some suggestions for those listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I personally do, Google Scholar is an awesome resource that is a great, easy way to quickly find peer-reviewed information. So you just you type in Google Scholar, that takes you to a separate search engine, and you can type in, say I wanted to learn more about coral health. I can type in coral health or coral and microbiome or anything you're interested in, and you'll get any peer-reviewed literature that tag
That's easier
to
access.
So some of those will be locked behind paywalls, but a lot of them, if you look off to the right, it'll say PDF. And if it has that written there, you can usually get a free PDF and read through the article. Another thing, ResearchGate has a lot of free materials that is, I believe, relatively accessible to the general public. Because not everybody has access to pay for these journals, or institutions that'll pay for these journals. So finding like cheap ways to get access to this really good literature. Also too, something I look at, like they'll give little abstracts, which kind of tells you what you're about to read. But I love to look at the methods section, because sometimes if I'm trying to figure out how to care for this weird rare invertebrate that nobody else has really cared for, the scientists who did work on it may have come up with some strategies to help care for it a little bit better. They had to keep it alive in a lab. And the bigger the sample size of the research, so the more participants in the study, the more accurate that study tends to be, the less bias there tends to be in that study. So I look for studies that have bigger sample sizes. So it'll be N equals something. So N equals 6 is like the lowest sample size. And then anything above that you start statistically to get more significant information.
And then you just kind of keep going from one to the next to the next. That's where the rabbit hole really starts.
Absolutely. Or I hear a weird term and I'm like, what the heck is that? And I'm like Googling that. And then that is like a whole, and even like Wikipedia gets a bad rap, but you can look at a Wikipedia article and you can go down into the references. Yeah. Because it'll reference things and you can find research that is being referenced.
Oh, that's bringing back some college papers, so I don't want to go too deep back into reference section.
Right? And right, peer-reviewed literature can be pretty chunky.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm very comfortable with, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity. You can look at just the introductions and learn a lot about things. The abstracts can be really beneficial, just giving you like a brief overview.
I feel like I've seen that method that you were talking about in some of our old books that we used to have under certain species. It would come down and be like method for keeping this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was like a little section that was always helpful when you're scrolling through.
Yeah.
Coral. Okay. Well, how's it kept?
It can be a way to quickly glean valuable information from something that is maybe a little bit bulkier than you would normally read.
Right.
I think there's also there's books. I'm a huge advocate of buying books. I've got the comprehensive aquarium guides by Julian Sprung and Charles Delbeek. That's volume 1, 2, and 3. Those are written in a really compelling way where you're taking highly complex and scientific things and it's being put into layman terms that are really digestible and easy to navigate. Martin Moe does a great job too of taking really complex scientific concepts and making them really easy to navigate. So trusted resources like that, I think too, can really help you gain an idea of like the flavor of content. So you start to see how if someone knows what they're talking about, this is how they kind of come across. This is kind of how they sound. I find I'm much more likely to trust somebody if they go, hey, there's a lot of ways to do this, or this might not work for you. This is what works for me. Like those caveats I think are really important because there's no one size fits all in this industry. You're working with tiny little complex ecosystems and each one is different.
And everybody keeps water and everything totally different from one
You can
another.
have 2 identical tanks next to each other.
Yeah, they don't behave the same.
And they don't
way.
behave the same. They can have the same equipment. You can do everything the same. They're in the same room. So you're like, what the heck, man? You should be identical. And they're not. That's a big thing in jelly culturing. They talk about a lot where, because jelly culturing, you really have to be a lot more on your game of like keeping things clean. Because it's really easy to contaminate your cultures and stuff like that. But I think that when you start to get a feel for how people who really have this well of knowledge talk, it helps you get a little bit better at discerning what is really meaningful and what isn't. And I think there's a ton of wonderful resources on the internet that are not peer reviewed, because peer review is like a whole thing that is a lot of effort. It's a lot of time and energy. It's a lot of money. So somebody can have really valuable, meaningful information without going through that rigorous scholarly avenue. It's just a way that you can at least trust that information a little bit.
I feel like anyone that says this is the way, you should scratch your head a little bit and explore that, unless it's like a Star Wars thing. But other than that, if it's this is the way, okay, let me explore that a little bit, because that seems like a hard line, and we know that our aquariums just aren't like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance. And there's some things where I think recently in one of those recaps, right, Salem was talking about contaminating, about how bacteria can contaminate, and we want to make sure that we are being safe in what we're providing. So I think when it comes to safety, there can be harder lines. When we talk about like toxins and polythoa poisoning that you guys were talking about on the talk you guys did when I was very sick. so sick. But
I know we didn't even get to hear if you had a story of getting ill.
I've accidentally gotten myself, because I was an idiot and was putting a frag onto some styrofoam to bag up a pally frag, and I like took the rubber band on my mouth. It's like direct hit. And just the rest of the talk the rest of the day was just like talking like this, and everything tasted like metal.
Is that as far as it went?
That was
you just kept working. You just like powered through.
Oh yeah, no, I was
You're like,
this
I can
is
help you
weird.
still.
I should probably mention this to somebody. Didn't know what like.
No, I wasn't at the dentist today. I just ate some Cali juice.
I was like, oh, this is odd. What an odd thing to happen.
I think Jen like trumps all of us on list of injuries and hospital visits and near-death experience.
I'm so squirrely. I will go out of my way to not get like for the first time in my string of time at Butterfly Pavilion, I got stung by the first thing.
What was it?
It was just a bumblebee. It wasn't even anything cool. Like it was.
Wow,
that's
no,
nothing impressive.
I really thought it'd be cooler, man.
No,
like I'm not gonna lie.
Nothing impressive. No, it was a bumblebee. It was dumb. We were trying
From Madagascar.
No, not even. Eastern United States bumblebee.
Oh,
The saucy bumbles.
wow.
Yeah. I did have swelling in my arm for like 2 days though, and I was like, "Oh, this should be going down. That's not great."
You took care of him so well that he was like extra potent.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What little turds. Bumblebees, man. PSA. Bumblebees, they look cute and fuzzy, but they're jerks. And I will go to the grave on that. All these reef people are like, why is she talking about bumblebees? Side note.
We do little
I want a graphic with a bumblebee.
like Band-Aids with bumblebees on them.
Yeah, no, I'm really squirrely. Like I really try not to get tagged by stuff. I had a carpet anemone that lit up the back of my hand because I was treating aptasia with a syringe and it dropped down into the carpet and it was like, yes, food. And I was like, no, you'll puncture yourself. And so it wrapped.
Sacrificed yourself.
I did for that anemone. Did it appreciate that sacrifice? No, it did not.
Did it leave behind all its little barbs? And
Oh,
everything?
dude, yeah, that took like a month and a half to heal fully. And I had scarring for a solid 3 or 4 months after that. Just from the top, the stuff on my hand, because your hands are nice and callous.
Yeah, it just comes right off there.
Yeah, but this soft baby tissue.
Or like right on your forearm inside.
Inner forearm, man. Because you got lit up by those.
Yes, that
euphilia.
You saw those welts.
Yeah, those brutal.
Yeah, Chelsea shared a lovely photo.
I still have.
I don't know what stung me.
It's still there.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
That's like a month later.
Battle wound.
And I don't even think I touched that thing.
Yeah.
So my body was like,
Meat tenderizer.
It was just happy.
Who has meat tenderizer laying around? We need to ask you about this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. How did you come upon the discovery?
No, somebody told
Meat tenderizer.
So, in aquarium hobby lore, right? Some old aquarist passed it on to me and I've now passed it on to young aquarists. But what the meat tenderizer does is it kind of like opens up the pores of your skin and it allows the nematocysts to come out a lot easier. So it kind of neutralizes it a little bit.
But did you have it laying around your house, or you're like, I'm gonna go
Yeah,
get
do you
this
just
for
like keep
this?
it in like your fragging bag?
Yeah,
Like,
I keep it in the fragging bag. Yeah, yeah. So I keep it as we have it.
Is there a brand that you like more than others? Like,
I don't-
should we stay
Safeway
away
brand
from
or-
like
I think I can only
McCormick
ever
or,
find
no.
don't get it with seasoning in it.
Just rubbing oregano all over
I think my
your
dad
arm.
made that mistake. I was like, yeah, it's just got like some extra seeds, like some pepper in it too. Rub salt.
Open
in
up
that
your
one.
pores and put in some oregano.
Yeah,
Garlic.
but it works really well. Had great success with that. If I throw it on, if I'm feeling even just the precursor of something got me, throw that on there. Let it just sit for a little bit. I like to make it I put water on it and
So
then
you make like a paste?
like a paste kind of, yeah, and just let it sit there for 5-10 minutes.
So you're just kind of like...
So you start to tenderize.
Yeah, you're just making your own
Tenderizing your own arm.
Tenderizing myself. That's how you get that baby soft skin. Meat tenderizer. The cosmetic tips they don't
Going
tell
into
you.
cosmetic.
Don't do that. Don't put meat tenderizer on you unless you need to. But yeah, it's
So don't replace like the sugar scrub or the salt scrub or anything like that.
with just meat tenderizer. Yeah, I keep it. We actually picked up in our first aid kit at work. We have just like a little
Oh, for real?
thing of meat tenderizer.
All right, I'm convinced.
It's like a $2 investment, and
I'm putting it in the toolbox.
maybe if it is a placebo, it's a placebo that makes me
Fine.
feel better.
Trick my brain. I don't care.
No, I've had it work really well. We've used it for a variety of different reasons, and had it work great.
Dude. All right, well, Chelsea, you'll get to tell us what it's like
I'm sure
the next time you get
yeah.
Next time
tagged
you
and
get
you
tagged.
just
I'm sure we'll
kind
have
of
to-
run around
Because
the
we've learned
corner away
I'm
from
squirrely.
your client. You're just like, where is it?
Oh yeah, I'm putting it in my toolbox. I'm But then it's like, okay, but you can't dip your hand back in the tank after that. So do you have a pair of gloves you like that aren't those massive, just
the ones that don't
terrible
fit
gloves
you at all?
Oh,
Yeah,
the
you
red
can't
one,
maneuver.
the red and blue one.
Yeah, is there any alternative to that?
I mean, I don't think so.
Ah,
That's what we need. That's the R&D we need.
it really,
Good gloves that fit well.
yeah.
you can actually maneuver. Like, how are you supposed to even grab a coral, like a fry?
Yeah,
with those
like my
stinking
fingers
things?
are so
They're-
small that like, you know, it gets all messed up and then I end up gluing
There's
part of the glove to whatever I'm
you can get like
working
those
with.
dish gloves. They're not long enough, but
That's the thing.
you could like duct tape it maybe.
I can't, but then it's like, so I just drive around with that glove on all day.
Listen, sacrifices. I don't know. You're the one who got stung.
I'm just trying to be practical. Like, what can I do moving forward that I'm actually going to do, you know?
That's fair.
And is it fashionable enough to
'Cause
wear
I don't want
all
to be gen
day?
level, like, hospital situation here.
Yeah. No, that's
But
fair.
I do want to take precautions, but it's like everything we have is so inconvenient to use.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could get away with, depending on the wound, how big it is, depending on how much you have pissed this coral off. Well, even just like those waterproof bandages
Okay.
that fully that fully
those,
seal.
Those are really cool, but I never had really good luck with them. If I had like I always, when I would handle rock, like I'd always like bang up my knuckles and stuff. And, you know, anytime I try to utilize any of those, you know, a couple of days after dipping in and out of tanks, it's just like, why?
We're like nixing everything. She's like, we're like, no. No, just, no.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You're trying.
I'm
You're
used to it.
trying.
Always keep going for a yes.
But
You'll eventually get it.
This is a company opportunity. We need armpit length gloves that we can.
Well, because I mean, Myco and Vibrio are real and dangerous things too. So even if you, not only are there toxins in your tank if you're messing with your coral and things that can light you up, like Vibrio and Mycobacteria can also be found in your tank. So I'm personally like religious with wound care when it comes to working in a system. So I will scrub up as soon as my hands are out. I take really good care of injuries, like putting Vaseline or Neosporin on them.
I think one of the listeners commented about the Vibrio.
Yeah.
On our last post, someone mentioned that.
I've known people who have gone to the hospital from Vibrio and Myco infections. Because if you have that's another thing too, pay attention to your wounds.
Yeah.
If you are working in systems and you are noticing that something is consistently inflamed or is swelling, like don't put it off.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to treat it when it's not like full-blown septicemia.
Right.
Well, and you know, just little minor like notes that you can just even do. Like it's staying pink. Now the pink is turning more purplish red.
It looks angry.
It's starting to get
Streaking.
upset.
Yeah. Anytime you see red streaking on something, that is bad.
Yeah.
That is PSA. That is bad. Go get that checked out. Because I've had stuff that's been like I've anointed or it's been inflamed, like wounds that I've been working in a tank on. And as long as you keep it clean and dry as best you can when you're out of the tank, you can reduce the risk of those things from happening. It's not something like I want everybody to like go home and fear their tank, because that's not what you should be worried about. But it's something to be aware of in the back of your mind when you're doing your routine and working on your systems. Is just that extra step of like, hey, I'm just going to be careful for my own personal health. It's an extra step that is meaningful.
What about flipping that around now? So what about the things that we might wear, or fragrances or lotions, and how they affect our tanks, right? Because I think that's something that I make sure I'm really careful about, since I'm servicing multiple tanks a day. So no lotions, even the hand soaps that I use to wash my hands.
Yep.
You're just making sure you get it off your skin.
I always
Dip in
like
the
I
water.
would never put lotions on, like period,
Same.
knowing that I'd be even working around a tank or even dealing with like mixing water or anything of that nature. And when I would wash my hands, even without that on there, I would use like really hot water. So that way I was like, okay,
You're like, I'm gonna strip
really
everything.
getting in here. So I have this really kind of insane tolerance now for hot water. So I am that meme of like the
It's just
fire
women
just
hands.
coming right out of the faucet.
That's just women.
That's
hands.
me. That's just women.
He's just like, hot spring, we don't know her.
I've done like
Geysers.
if you have RO
It's
available.
toasty.
to wipe with the RO, or like, I don't know if that's...
Yeah, wiping with RO, for sure. And even just, like I was always really careful with like my towels. Like anytime I would even clean my towels, if I had to bleach, I would always do like a hot rinse, like 4 more times. Like if I opened that washer and I could still smell anything, I was like, nope, you're going back through.
We
Because that can still
we do
come off on
dechlor, and then we'll kind of do a nose test with dechlor. If it smells even faintly fluorine-y, we'll run it through another cycle. There was a guy when I worked at the fish store. We had this like standalone tank that would highlight different. It was a smaller cube. It would highlight different things that we were showcasing. Sometimes it had like seahorses in it. Sometimes it had coral. I think one time it had a gem tank. And I remember he was having issues in the tank with phosphates, and we couldn't figure out what was going on because he wasn't overfeeding. Like it was this whole weird thing. And then somebody watched him washing his hands, and they were still sudsy. And we think that there was phosphates in the soap that was potentially getting into the tank.
That seems like that.
I mean,
just who puts their hands with suds?
And they weren't fully sudsy, but like there was some residual soap on him.
Or like when you see like I have had to get on to, you know, employees or even like pre-tell my customers, like they would call me and be like, oh hey, I put my arm in my tank and this really cool rainbow came off, and I'm like,
an oil spill.
Okay, let's not do that anymore.
Yes,
definitely go wash your arm, everything, all the way.
And probably throw a bag of carbon in the tank, right?
Yeah, your skimmer's gonna be upset. All that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and we were like, okay, dude, maybe like let's wash a little bit more. So I think just being more thoroughly, and the issues started to decline. So
So something as simple as hand soap can really...
And like it wasn't it wasn't this huge issue. It wasn't catastrophic. It wasn't like the phosphates were crazy. It was just enough to irritate him that he couldn't get them down. So I think sometimes that's too, like if there's when we're looking for problems, there's going to be the obvious things where we're designed to look for a problem, where we've been trained to look for a problem, because your brain is really cool in the fact that it's really good at making connections, but correlation does not always equal causation. Right. So you want to also take a step back and really like break down the entire process of every interaction with that tank to try and figure out what it could be.
Don't cut multiple things off at once, right?
One at a
Stop
time.
one thing, see if it works, then move, because we get in panic mode and we're like, anything that
you'll just change your whole routine.
You don't know what it was, right? So,
and again, you can think it was something and it was something else, or it was two things working together. But
so there's a scientific process for you, right?
Absolutely, yes. You want to make sure you don't have too many variables, and that's part of the scientific process is that variable component. If you're really trying to narrow down what the issue is and what the problem is, one variable at a time. If you have, with the caveat, with the little asterisk, if you have the time to do that. So if your tank is crashing, go into triage mode, right? Throw the kitchen sink at it. Do whatever you need to fix the problem. But if you are trying to dial in, tune in, you've got a consistent issue that you're trying to work on, then that kind of one variable at a time approach is much more effective.
I had a tank actually and I did that kind of break it down one variable at a time. For whatever reason, this client really liked those oil mystifier broom things. He had 3 around the tank, and it was to the point where I was having a hard time cleaning the tank because I'm pretty sensitive to scents, and so I was in there like getting a headache, and he was having some weird issues with his corals receding, and because they like vaporized, I was like, it might not be it, but let's just go ahead and move all 3 of these away. They can go anywhere else in the house, but not near the tank. And I think that's a common thing that we all have, like plugins, misters, somewhere in our house.
Even candles.
Oh yeah.
Again, may not have been what it was, but when we moved all those, no issues.
Yeah.
Or slowly, progressed back to normal.
Yeah.
So, because I didn't want to change too much in the tank, because that wasn't easy. Move.
Yeah, and you're gonna have stuff like that where it's like, okay, well,
and is it worth it really? Like you can move it 3 outlets away.
Yeah. Your tank shouldn't smell like low tide. If things are going well, it shouldn't smell that bad.
Fresh laundry scent.
Yeah, a clean linen.
You shouldn't
Reef.
need clean linen tank.
I think they're like, oh, this skimmer smells so bad. Put in the plug
Oh,
in.
my mom used to be like that. My poor
I
dad.
can see the skimmer being the culprit as
Yeah.
to why a lot of that stuff gets plugged in because, I mean,
Cover it up.
it is
It's a cover up though, people.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Clean the source.
My mom wouldn't let him use like the kitchen sink to clean his skimmers. Like he always had to like pour it out into the toilet, and she'd make him use like the laundry room sink.
My husband doesn't even, we have 2 bathrooms and one is his. And he's like, are you pouring that fish stuff in my toilet? I'm like, yep. It's the closest bathroom.
Would you
But he's
rather
like,
me
"I would too."
trip on the way to the other
So
bathroom?
then do you do
Yeah.
like covert like skimmer dumping like in his bedroom then so he
Interesting.
doesn't catch
Mission
you?
Impossible.
My personal tank, I have not, it's been running for 5 years. I've never run a skimmer.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get away with it.
My clients' tanks, a lot of time, yeah, they have a skimmer, but like my tank, I'm dosing nitrates, dosing phosphates, and so I don't want to pull those back out.
What's your bioload on that system? Like, what are your?
It's pretty low. Like,
Yeah.
we were talking about this last time. I have a yellow assessor. I had the Swallow-sea basslet, paraclowns. The biggest thing in there is the Tomini tank. But I think I got about 5 or 6, but they're all like within.
And what size is this again?
It's a Reefer 350, so I think that's their numbers get me. But
Yeah,
a 70
they get
something
me.
on the top, and then so total volume is 93.
Oh wow! And with that low bioload, yeah,
Yeah, that's really
So,
good.
I'm not surprised.
So then how big are the water changes that you perform and then how frequently are you doing them?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm on my
Chelsea has left the chat.
I do neglect my personal tank just because I'm doing so many other tanks, but I probably get in.
Is it neglect if it's doing well?
That's
Yeah.
the thing. I look at it and I'm like,
It's not.
It's happy.
If you're happy with it, the animals are doing well. It's not really neglect.
yeah, I think the main reason that I end up doing water changes is not so much for dirt and issues, but to replenish things that that I don't have on a doser.
Yeah, that's limiting.
So, because I have some bigger colonies now, and they do need that alkalinity, calcium, magnesium. They need that, and when I'm not dosing it, I at least like my bare minimum is like, all right, let me go ahead and go in and do a 10, 15 gallon water change. But if I let it get nice and dirty, it's really like I love that gravel back, all the dirt coming out. But
Why is it therapeutic though?
I don't-
to use it. Why?
don't know.
Why is it? Because I don't find the same satisfaction when doing regular vacuuming. So
Right.
why is the gravel vac so
You might just
good?
need a better vacuum. Because if you've got a really good vacuum that pulls up stuff, that can equally be that can scratch a
Yeah.
similar itch to a gravel vac.
got to get that Dyson.
Oh,
That Dyson.
All right.
Speaking of
there's some
gravel
cheaper ones.
vacuuming, really quick, little small thing. I cannot stand when I see. Okay, so I gravel vac freshwater and saltwater differently.
Okay.
Maybe I'm crazy, but when I'm doing saltwater vacuuming, I actually lean more. So I'll lean.
Yeah, you have it more at an angle.
Yep. Versus
Yeah.
freshwater actually works.
Yeah,
better
I
if
feel
it's
like
straight up and down.
you have to really kick the sand up finally because it doesn't matter
Otherwise it's just poof,
about
poof.
the trap door.
Yeah.
That's just I'll get
substrate
like that
size,
nice
though.
little
It's
chunk
substrate
stuck.
size.
somewhere.
Yeah,
That's
that's
exactly
just
what it is.
That's because it's your substrate size. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you need different techniques to get different things out. The smaller the
Yeah.
substrate, the more likely you are to just zip that away. So if you got like some sugar fine sand,
Oh, like the what is that? The oolite that they
Yeah,
use
the
for
oolite, yeah.
Ooh, that stuff. But like the saltwater, pretty much, I do not go straight up and down on that because when you go to lift it up, when you're getting too full, the dirt it just poofs right back out. But if you tilt it just a little bit, your sand can come out and the dirt can.
are you like full? Like I keep whenever I'm gravel backing, I've got my fingers in like a ready to go pinch, and
Oh,
I
I'm
use.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
do that too.
And you're just using that to I'll just totally
Yep.
like dial in that speed.
Oh man, it's a science.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And when you finally like get the nuance of it and you've got the muscle memory,
Well,
like-
I'm not even looking. It's just
yeah, you're
Yeah.
just like, you just know.
watching the dirt.
Yeah, you don't
the
even
worst
touch
though
the-
is when you're so in zone with it that
and
then
the bucket overflows.
Yeah, the bucket overflows or the hose pinches off and you just absolutely did not even pay attention. You're like, oh man. And then it was the one time you did not have your other hand on the hose. So then now you have to start all completely over.
Waterproof shoes and wool socks
Yeah.
are 10 out of 10 for wet feet.
Yeah. Now
Or
that
That's a
I
nice
just
big
I
bucket.
just rolled more dangerous. I was like, of course this is gonna happen when I'm wearing like regular clothes and regular shoes. I would never do this in. I've got 10 minutes. We're just gonna let this happen today.
Yeah.
It's always that time, people.
I haven't had a
Every
bucket
time.
overflow in a while, and it's like my
Okay, well
nightmare.
you do. It's gonna happen now.
Now it's gonna happen literally next
Yeah.
week when I go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like my nightmare.
You're gonna
is
be
that
on
in
like
clients'
heirloom
houses,
carpet,
bamboo
flooring.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yep.
worst possible scenario.
It was always funny. So like when I was a service manager training other techs, I overheard a conversation. I had 2 new techs, and they're like, dude, he's like around the corner, like behind the tank. He's like, dude, when you dump her water bucket, 'cause I would, make them do the grunt labor and carry out my water. He's like, you have to swirl it at the end because she doesn't like if you just dump it and like all the dirt's still in there. So you got to give it like a little swirl and then dump it. Because if you give
it's
it back to her, she's
true.
going to be like, what is this?
It's true.
I felt
It's
terrible, but I was like,
true.
I do have a procedure. I really do.
It's true. It's true because then it stays behind and it coats the bucket the next round.
And
Like,
part of it is
it's
muscle
true.
memory, right? Because like when
Yeah.
Yeah, you just know to do it.
you do, and procedure of, and this applies for people at home, procedure of how you do things. Because if you space out, you got kids running around, you got music playing, whatever. If you've done the same thing over and over, you won't have your HANA test blank out and start all over. If you know that you're sitting down, you're doing your test the very first thing, right? Like just so many times I've caught myself like, oh, did I plug that in? But my muscle memory was that, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Because this is what I do every time. I've literally called clients and they're like, check your pump, and they're like, it's on.
Yes, but
I saved
sometimes it is
myself.
off.
Sometimes it's off. Yeah, everyone's imperfect, but like sometimes you catch yourself just on muscle memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Muscle memory is a really strong thing. And I think that's another reason too why kind of doing things the same way multiple times can help you also diagnostically. So if I'm personally a somewhat chaotic person, like in my approach to it doesn't come
across.
It doesn't come
Yeah.
across. My brain is a wild ride. I have come up with things that help me focus in. And I do have some things where I'm very rigid in how I do. Like I have a process, but there's a lot of times where I don't have a process, and that has bitten me because it's been really hard to diagnose if something went wrong.
Right.
So having that consistent process where you do things in the same order or you do things consistently, when you do have a problem arise, can really help you work backwards of what went wrong this time and go from there.
Yeah. 100%.
We're all just detectives. We're reef detectives. What is going wrong today? There's been a murder of your nitrate levels.
Dude, or of the bucket overflowing. It's always a good time.
You must have had a bad experience.
Well, I never used to deal with like a whole lot of the 5-gallon buckets. I would just get in my zone and just use a 40-gallon drum. So I would work my way
that's
down
what we
a
used to use at the
row,
store.
and I'd be like, I've got time.
Yeah.
I have plenty of time. I can do at least 10 more tanks, da 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 da. And then it's always whenever you decide you're brave enough to just not look at it, or it's like off to the side, slightly behind you.
Mhm.
And then someone will talk to you. They'll come up to you and ask you maybe a question or something if you're in the store, and you get involved in talking to them, and then you start. They're like, "Oh, you've got your stuff coming out." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So did I
Floor drains.
help you out there? I'm gonna clean this up. Please, give me a minute here."
Well, I think too, it's really easy to get into those habits and those procedures and things like that. But I always advocate for us at least have a section of your routine where you are fully focused, because that's going to be how you catch issues that are just starting to crop up. We do a lot of work with animal welfare where we're constantly looking at our animals, assessing. And part of a lot of the work with the Florida Reef Track project was like monthly photos. And I didn't realize how valuable those were until being a part of the project. Like we do daily record keeping, but actually having photos I could compare, or taking the time to sit with the coral for just a couple of minutes and really look and inspect all of them, trained me a lot better to identify issues as they started to rise, where that little like Aquarius spidey sense where like something isn't right, I don't know what it is. And then in a day or two, okay, I'm starting to see tissue thinning or tissue recession, or it was paling in one spot. And so having that attention to detail, that fish is doing a weird behavior I've never seen before, having that focus can be, even if it's just like, I give myself 2 minutes and I just look at my tank really hard for 2 minutes and then can zone out on the rest.
Okay, but are you the person who like gets up like right against the glass and has to look at, because that's
Like wake up
that's me.
fishy.
That's
Beep,
me.
beep, beep.
Well, no, I get
kidding.
in there like don't be a Darla.
Don't be a Darla.
Don't be a Darla. No,
You get so close, you
get
accidentally hit your
clo-
forehead.
Well, no, you just get so close to it, and then you come back to like reality.
Yeah.
Like, what
Going
am I
back inside this
doing? I'm
aquarium.
like right up in this thing's grill here.
Yeah.
Well, you should
But
be.
you get like totally just enveloped in the
You
whole
have a
entire
tiny
thing.
piece of the ocean in your living
Yeah.
room. You should be fascinated by it.
Oh,
It
it's
is
so
cool as
cool.
heck.
And I think that's one of like, I feel like I have a list, and there's certain things that make for a good hobbyist, a good pet parent, and attention to detail is on the list no matter what pet you have, right? It's just there's certain qualities and traits that we need to develop if we own animals that help us take care of them.
Yeah.
That's part of what we're doing.
And I think that's been cool to see with the advent of all like these controllers and these new resources for measurement and ICP and all these resources. It makes it so much easier to track what you are doing and what your tank looks like and to get those snapshots, because all of that information is a tool for you to use when something does go wrong. So the more you have consistent records, the more you personally are keeping track of what you're doing, the more resources you have to turn back to when something goes south.
Yeah.
So they can be beautiful, they can be wonderful, just things in your living room that bring you joy,
Techie equipment.
techie, like fun things to fiddle with and stuff. But having that extra level of rigor where you're doing record keeping, I think really just benefits you in the long run. And it helps stores tell you, like if I'm working at a store and you come to me and you're like, okay, these are my care records. And you like put down a notebook. And I loved when people would bring me their notebooks when they're like, hey, I would like to get my water tested. This is what my test kit is testing. And you can use that to check how your equipment's doing.
Yep.
But yeah, those just give you extra resources and extra availability. The least helpful thing in the world is my water is fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are your water parameters? My water parameters are fine.
What does fine mean to you?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What does fine?
Yeah, because to somebody who keeps acros, nitrates and phosphates are going to be a very different beast than somebody who's keeping softies or has a fowler tank, right? So more data.
And on the equipment end, something that like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, when I'm dealing with my clients, sometimes like I'm just gonna, on the apex, you want your apex to match your Hannah. And it'll be in a range of similar, but when you pull that graph out, that's when you see, oh man, like that alkalinity really dropped versus the little deep, micro daily, you see like, okay, something is not right there. The temperature is off, the alkalinity is off.
I take any measurement tool with a grain of salt. They are all within ranges. Some are really tight ranges, and some have really wide variation. The more important thing is you're consistent in how you test using the test kit. So we'll see variation even between two people using the exact same test kit. We'll test it slightly differently. They will see the color variation slightly differently, and that can have huge impacts on what it seems like your tank is doing. But if you have the same person consistently doing it, they do it the same way every time, you're looking for that wiggle. The wiggle is more important than the actual value.
Right, exactly. That's why like sometimes people are like, it's 7.2 today, but it was 7.3 yesterday. I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's when you look at it and you're like, okay, that's significant right there, then we need to look at that.
For some people, they're like, my nitrates are always at 30, but everybody seems healthy and happy. And then suddenly their nitrates are at 100. That's very different. Like that's you're not chasing a number, you are looking for the variation.
Yeah.
You're looking for that sudden destabilization of your system.
And that is when, so if you have a tank it's been fine in high range nitrate, because I've had this happen. My fish are fine. My nitrates are 150 plus freshwater tank. You add a new fish in, that's when you're going to see the problem, because the new fish is probably not going to be very happy going into 150.
Everybody else is
everyone
acclimated
else
to
is
it.
acclimated to
Yeah.
it. So I get that question a lot. Well, how come I added new fish and it did poorly, but all my fish in here are fine with high nitrates? Because it's probably not coming from 150 going into, you know.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind too. The big swings on parameters coming in for fish is usually when it gets shaky, and then big swings in our own tank on our own fish. But sometimes our stuff gets used to levels.
Yeah, that's why I tend to use, like, for us, we'll just use, when I worked at the store, we'd use API test kits.
Yeah.
They're solid for what they are.
Yeah.
They will help you identify where the wiggles are, as long as you're using them consistently. When you do some of the nicer test kits, the more high-end test kits, those I really target for things I'm dosing. So if I need that measurement if I'm basing what is going to be dosed off of a measurement, then like a Salifert is going to be really helpful.
The calcium, the alkaline.
Yeah, I like the red
When you
Cs.
start checking all those guys, yes, you want the nice test kits.
Yeah, because then you're doing a measurement against it. Having that range be smaller, much more important. And then using something like ICP analysis to then check again what's going on with your system. Having multiple layers of checks and balances is only going to help you. Might drive you crazy when the numbers don't match, but as long as they're roughly lining up and things are doing okay, because some of the ICP analysis stuff is really advanced it's very in depth, and those trace elements can drive you bonkers.
Salem to read it for you and tell you.
Yeah, they can drive you bonkers if you don't know what you're looking for. And they really so don't get too into the weeds with it.
Yeah.
If your tank is doing well and your checks and balances are lining up well, then you shouldn't have to worry. And if you do see something starting to go wrong, look for the most obvious solutions first. Work your way to the weird.
Yeah.
There's a premise in science called Occam's razor.
That's a cool name.
It's a fun name. But the premise of Occam's razor is if you hear hoofbeats outside, 9 times out of 10, it's probably a horse, not a zebra.
Okay.
So the way that's applied is the most common answer is most likely what the issue is. And then you work up from it. It might be a flippin' zebra out there.
1% out of 100.
Right?
Yeah.
You might have a zebra out there. But most of the time it's probably a horse. Or I guess if you did this somewhere where zebra were prevalent, it's a zebra.
If you work at the zoo.
If you work at the zoo, maybe it is a zebra. But yeah, just that simple principle of like, it's most likely a common issue, and work your way from there.
Yeah.
Which can be frustrating. Again, if you're having to go variable by variable and things aren't going right, it can take time.
Yeah.
Good things never go quickly in aquatics.
And you want consistency more than anything, because that's going to help you understand how everything in your tank is even going to behave long term. And, I used to talk to my customers a lot, and other hobbyists be like, chasing numbers is tough. It can be
drive you crazy.
Mind boggling for you. Aim for consistency, consistent patterns, things of that nature. And that's when they'd be like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
settles you down.
Take a little bit of a step back, understand there's going to be some variables here and there, but that's natural.
Yeah. And there's variables in the ocean. Like we talk a lot about
rain, hurricanes.
Yeah.
You can have
weather, heat.
Yeah.
Like we talk about how stability is really important and reef ecosystems are relatively stable, but it's relatively stable compared to like freshwater ecosystems that have high variability. You might have pH down at 5.4 in one ecosystem and up to 9.4 in like Lake Tanganyika. And the ocean, your band is much smaller, but there is still variability. There are still temperature fluctuations throughout the year. There are changes that happen with currents. Those things will over time impact these animals. So having some slight variation isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's when you have too many variables that you can't diagnose a problem is when it becomes
and
more
they just
issue.
keep rolling
Or
at you.
so much equipment that you can't diagnose a problem because you don't really need half that equipment.
Yeah.
Just put that out there.
Yeah, I a lot of times when we look at our systems, we look at our systems through the lens of failure points.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So every additional component is a new failure point added. And what you need to do as an aquarist is identify what is the ROI on that failure. And how does something fail? Does it fail in the on position and your tank is nuked at 96 degrees?
Which is what's cool about Apex, because you can choose that.
You can choose how it fails. You can choose that it turns off or goes off.
Yep.
Absolutely. Even like with the amount of elbows you put in your plumbing,
Yep.
or joints you put in your plumbing, do you spend the extra money and get the slightly longer piece of plumbing, or do you use whatever you've got and you do a coupling and you add another failure point?
Get us started on plumbing.
But that's something that you'll start to see over time that usually efficiency is what most people who've got tons of experience tend towards.
And that's another characteristic or quality of like a good hobbyist, right? Like we're kind of hitting on some of these that make good pet parents and hobbyists.
Yeah.
Efficiency, attention to detail. Maybe we can hit a couple more on Sunday when we do our
Yeah.
next talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should, for sure.
And I think we should never assume that people have this information at their fingertips. So that's why I love opportunities like this to talk about like our own experiences and just your excitement about the failure points. Like, cause it rings so true, but it wasn't intuitive.
Yeah.
I feel like this hobby, this field is not intuitive.
Yeah.
So many times it pushes you to think outside the box, to be more flexible in how you approach things. It does weird stuff where you're like, that's magic, that's not physics.
Yeah.
And
sometimes you're just winging it and you're like, hey, it worked.
yeah, you wing it and then you try to reverse engineer what you did so you can replicate it. But the more voices that are out there, the more you learn and the more kind of critically you look at things, the more that just helps you become a better aquarist.
100%.
Agreed.
Totally. All right. So, did we make it? I don't know what our time limit. All right, cool. Okay, well, we have the thumbs up. Nice. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed our little chat this evening. Ladies, thank you for coming to hang out tonight in the Reef Builders studio with Reefstock right around the corner. We hope to see you all there, where you can actually catch Sara having a speaker session and then Chelsie doing a workshop, and you can see me possibly running around trying to make sure everything's as organized as possible. So
If you see Evie, she might need a Starbucks.
maybe, or Red Bull.
Red Bull.
Or both.
Red Bull.
I can do both. I'm not opposed to, totally rocking both of them. I'm great
Anything with caffeine.
Yeah, caffeine. Caffeine is queen or king, whichever one you want. All right, cool, guys. Well, we will see you on the next episode. And I believe that we've got tons of content coming out pretty soon for a lot of coverage that'll be covering Reefstock, all the events. We've got basically almost everyone from the team here. So you're going to get to see a lot of really neat interactions between all of us in person, that now we don't have the barriers of just being in our homes and having our cameras stare at us.
Our Brady Bunch squares.
Yeah,
trying to see who's talking.
Yes, for sure.
Hoping the Wi-Fi holds out.
Yeah, well, we found out what the problem is, Sara. Yes. It wasn't Andrew.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
It wasn't the gaming behind the scenes.
It wasn't all the extra gaming, okay?
He was so good. He was so good. He sat in silence for an hour.
All of our poor husbands just trying to play their games, and we're like, get off the Wi-Fi.
Sean just goes and takes a nap, and then I come in there and like, hey, what'd you think? He was like, oh yeah, I'm sure it was great.
You did awesome.
Cool, thanks, babe. All right, guys, well, we'll see you on the next episode, and that'll probably be with Remy and a whole bunch of other guests, and we do also have the 100th episode, so make sure you guys check that one out too. We're going to have a lot of really cool people hanging out on the couch with Remy, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.